Welcome, everybody, to Crucible Radio, except this is a very special episode because probably we're not going to really talk about the Crucible. Instead, you are listening to our first PvE episode of Destiny 2, a.k.a. PvEpisode, a.k.a. PvEpisode.
Thrilling.
But it's PvEpisode. And yeah, we're going to get into it.
Yeah, that means we're talking about stories, cutscenes, campaigns, explorable places, locations, characters, even the raid.
Oh, man. We're going to dive so deep into all this stuff. It's going to be something I've been waiting for. I love the PvE side. And, you know, it's time.
So is this like where I start talking? Is the show starting yet?
Nope, not yet. Not yet.
Just hold,
be
hold
quiet.
Okay.
Hold on. We're not at that part yet. Andrew edited all this out.
We'll get there.
We did it, guys. Hello and welcome to a very special bonus episode. First one in a long time. We haven't done a bonus since our first PvEpisode. When was that? Post Taken King? That was a long time ago.
And I remember that one fondly because we were like, oh, we're going to do a PvEpisode. And then we waited like 2 months.
Yeah.
Finally did it. And everyone was like, yeah, that's cool. We've been talking about that for months.
Yep.
We're doing pretty well. The game has only been out for like 20 days.
Yeah, that's true. And well, I'm Bones.
Is it only 20 days? It feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, it is. Bones. It is. Hello, I'm Bones. I'm here with Birds and Swain, my lovely co-hosts. You're listening to us because you probably know who we are because this is like a bonus thing and we're not trying to like at you on Twitter to get you to listen to our show. So thank you for being here. We also have a very special guest with us today, a fellow podcaster who's been doing it way longer than we have.
And a co-host of our PvEpisode.
Yes, a full-on special co-host. This isn't even a guest slot. There's no interview at the end. It happens in just a few seconds. Parris, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. I've been listening to you guys for the longest, and I've always said in the back of my head, I was like, man, I'll never be on that podcast because I absolutely stink at PvP. But doing it this way, I can actually be on.
We
so
do
thank
too,
you.
but we host.
Right.
Yeah, it really... but we only let ourselves have that, option. We can suck. The guests...
Very limited.
We're super honored to have you on just because it is a special opportunity and we love a lot of people in gaming that aren't obsessed with PvP like we are. You might be obsessed. I don't know. But well, hey, let's have people hear a little bit about you. Like I said, you're a podcaster and you go way back on Gamergate. I get into too many Twitter conversations. That's my default. Not that.
Oh, that's great. No, actually, I'm on a podcast called Gamertag Radio, which has been around since 2005.
I didn't have podcasts been around since 2005.
That seems like that's the first.
Were you the first podcast?
Yeah, well, that's what got me into podcasting was Gamertag Radio back in 2005, because that's when it all started. Danny Pena, a.k.a. Godfrey, started it way back then. And I started my own podcast a year after that in 2006 called Uncle Gamer Radio. Did that until about 2011. And then I'm doing air quotes now, retired. And Danny and I had always been friends along with Peter. He's the other co-host there. We'd been friends since way back then. Always, like meet up at E3 events, stuff like that. And then in 2013, they asked me to do a guest spot. We were talking about BioShock Infinite and there was a great reception from it. And they approached me after and said, hey, why don't you join full time? And I was like, I don't know about this full time stuff. I don't know if I can do it. I'll be on every now and again. And I don't think I've barely missed an episode since in 2013. I've been doing it. And it's been great. I mean, we have a great time doing it. We talk about any and everything gaming related, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, all type of genres. But I'm the designated. Someone called me the speaker. We got an email the other day about Destiny. They said I'm the speaker for Destiny. So because I'm the Destiny guy on there, we always call it Destiny Talk Radio when we start talking about Destiny. Because I mean, I've absolutely loved the game ever since the first revealed it back in 2013. I was very intrigued with it, and then in 2014 we went to the E3 and I played that Devil's Lair Strike. And I go, I get it. I literally took my wallet out and threw it at the screen because Jason Sussman can back me up on that because he was there. And I threw my wallet at the screen. I go, I get it. I'm in. I'm all in. And I've been a huge fan of Destiny ever since.
Well, I wondered about that because on Gamertag Radio, you guys covered everything, like every game that comes out. You give a take on it. You tell us a little bit. You sort of educate us on what we're in store for. But it seems like there's something about Destiny that it's on a different level compared to that. I mean, what is your approach to gaming and how do you fit all that is Destiny sort of in alongside all these other games?
I don't know. That would be my answer. I try. I mean, I try to not be too biased towards playing Destiny all the time because, again, one of the big hooks with Destiny is the people. That's why I keep coming back. You meet so many amazing people in the Destiny community. It's probably one of the least toxic communities out there gaming wise. And my son, who's 11 years old now, we play together a lot. So that's like an awesome thing. He literally carries me in PvP. He's like a savant. And, we raid together. We do trials together, all that stuff. So it's a great thing that my son and I can share. Excuse me. So that's one of the main reasons I keep coming back to it. But like you said on the podcast, we try to talk about any and everything. So we'll have this is kind of quote unquote Destiny season right now because the game just launched. So I've been talking about it a lot lately and, I've had opportunity to go to some events and all that during the summer. So I've talked about it a lot. I'm sure after the PC launches in October, I'll probably slow down on talking about it so much on the show. But I do find what happens is if I get a game to review, then obviously I'm going to focus on that game because I'm reviewing it. But when it's just my spare time and I'm just playing games to enjoy them, I tend to play Destiny. It is what it is. So, that's why I always preface anytime I talk about Destiny, I always say, and as we know, I'm very biased, and then I'll go into what I got to say.
Well, it's your lucky chance. We are letting you do whatever you want here.
We're all Destiny all the time.
We don't ever really get to talk about these topics. So
we get in big trouble if we talk about other games.
Yeah. A lot of Overwatch. Never mind. I got to put a $1 in the Overwatch jar.
Yep, that's it.
So, Parris, when you have a ton of games on your list, either reviews or free time, I'm imagining you might have some sort of at least short form list of things that these are points games have to hit. Games have to do this, this, and this to catch your attention. And maybe that's different per genre. Do you have something like that? Does Destiny just sort of hit a few key points for you that makes you, attach stronger to that game than the other ones you play?
Well, the irony is Destiny, we're talking Destiny 1, vanilla Destiny, went against every trope I would have for reviewing a game, because one of the first things is it must have a great story that I can follow and understand.
Of course, naturally.
And Destiny obviously didn't have that. Destiny went against the norm on that because, again, it's a Bungie game. So, its shooting roots are going to be strong. So obviously you're looking for that. So it met that. Story was out the window. I actually wasn't a big PvP person at first. So that was kind of out of the window, but it was that whole co-op thing. And it was really the raid. If it wasn't for the Vault of Glass, I probably would have tapped on it early on, but it was just something special about the Vault of Glass and getting 5 other people together and we're all forced to communicate and work as a team. That was such an amazing, because I don't play like World of Warcraft or anything because I like being married, and I've seriously and I say that because I've seriously tested that theory with this game a lot of late hours playing this game. But I mean, like in general, I look for a strong story. I look for a strong gameplay mechanics in it. If there's a multiplayer component to it, I want to check that out and see, how strong that holds up. Are there a lot of exploits, glitches, or, just some completely OP weapons that completely breaks the balance in the game, things of that nature. I'm not too huge on graphics. Obviously, I love them. Who doesn't love great graphics? But if you have that strong gameplay and you have a strong story that's going to suck me in, then, you got me. Like, honestly, my favorite game this generation, without a doubt, has been The Witcher 3, because I feel like it hit every checkbox for me. Amazing story, fantastic open world that you can have. Graphically, I played on the PC. I've been playing it like in 4K, things like that, and it just looks amazing. So it hits all those checkboxes for me. And then you take a silly little card game out of there called Gwent, and I got hooked on that in the game. And then they spun it off into its own game, and I play that online all the time too.
Bones got addicted to Hearthstone recently.
Yeah. I'm kind of cutting the cord on it, but maybe I'll just try Gwent because I need something else to wind down after a raid or something like that.
Yeah, it gets addictive. Really does.
Mm-hmm.
See, you touch on that aspect of storytelling in D1 and maybe the lack thereof. And for me, just like right off the bat, even just getting to play it at the preview event they did here in LA, just the approach they've taken with storytelling where, sort of in D1, you had a little bit of flavor text on the mission. You had a voiceover as you were flying in. And like, that was kind of that. There were bits and pieces, but didn't quite glue together. In D2, we've got full action cutscenes. We've got cutscenes interspersed in the middle of the missions. You've got post-game cutscenes, and you've got this sort of continuous voiceover throughout every mission. I guess I have to turn this into a question, don't I? What do you think about all that?
Your thoughts?
You're like, it's great. What do you think?
Well,
I really like it. Do you really like it?
Well, here's the funny thing about that is, I was lucky enough. I got to go to a preview event up at Bungie right before launch, and I got to play the game just for like 3 days, right? So playing the game, at the end, they let us sit down with the story team, like with the head story writers and everything. And we did like a roundtable discussion with them. And I told them at the time, I go, no disrespect, but really was disrespect to Destiny 1. I go, in the first 2 hours of gameplay, you told more story in those 2 hours than you did in 3 years of the first game, I felt, because I understood Gaul's motivations. I was able to look at the Traveler in a different way. You looked at Guardians in a different way in their relationship to the light. And, part of why they were so brave was because they were constantly being resurrected. And what did that mean to them once that was taken away? Like Ikora's whole story that you got through the campaign, and her actually having fear of death for probably
heartbreaking.
Yeah, for like the first time in probably centuries for her, right? So it's like you take all that and you're like, we didn't get into this in Destiny 1, and you're telling all this in just basically the vanilla story for Destiny 2. So that was a huge step up for them. And I think what that has done is it's given the quote unquote casual Destiny player a reason to actually follow along what's going on. And you can now kind of understand the lore and the universe of what's happening now. Because if anything, and I don't know if we're getting into spoilers, but I won't make this a spoilery thing, but by the end of Destiny 2, I really want to know more about the Traveler now. Whereas in Destiny 1, I never cared about the Traveler. He was just this big ball that sat, in front of the city. But now, there's more to the Traveler than just being the provider of light. I mean, obviously the Cabal saw it as a weapon, whereas we, the Guardians, see the Traveler almost as a god. So which one is it? I'm sure it's something in between, but hopefully with these expansions and DLCs, they'll be able to give us more backstory on the Traveler, and we find out more about the light and why the Traveler picked us, why at one point, I'm turning into Bife now, but why at one point they chose the Fallen and then rejected the Fallen. There's all these questions now that want to be asked. And the fact that I don't have to go out of the game now to get some of those answers is huge. Like I said, someone can now pick up Destiny 2 and never have to leave the game and actually understand everything that's going on.
I could not agree more. When they had that opening sequence, just like before the game starts, where they sort of recap the story, I remember just like yelling to the missus, like, get in here, watch
Right.
it. Like they've never really explained it in a 2-minute format like this. This is going to help.
I felt like the part of D2 though was the fact that D1, like you said, it was a little lackluster when it came to telling you the story. So D2 is the sequel, but it kind of is like because it has to appeal to PC gamers too. I feel like it has this like, I don't know. I don't want to say Destiny 1.5, but it just feels like they were like, all right, we got to tell it right this time. There's going to be a lot of stuff that they're going to have to like cover real quick that is from Destiny 1 that we all know already. But a lot of people didn't get that. Like a lot of people didn't even do the raids in Destiny 1.
Right,
so
right.
There's a lot of story there that they were like, no one knows this. We got to tell it real quick. But hopefully we get like a lot more like expansion. Well, obviously in expansions, more like development on all the stuff that like they kind of hinted at.
Agreed.
Well, I think it's very fair that they can do that without feeling like, please make up for this lackluster first outing. I'm sure they wanted to, but I mean, I think it's fair to say that happens in a lot of other games in maybe subtler ways. I think Destiny had a lot that they wanted to explain, and for that they simplified it and said, all right, look, it's not this insane book you got to read. Here's what it is. And maybe you lose a little nuance in that, but there's plenty to find. I mean, it happens in Halo. If you start Halo 3, there's going to be some weird line that sort of introduces who Cortana is, right? Because every game that ever comes out, you want a new player to pick it up and try it. I started with Halo 2. I never played the first one for a very long time. So there was parts in that game where I went, oh, okay, all right, I understand this relationship. So I think it's fair that that's going to happen. And I think they did a really good job because there are going to be people who either started this brand new or, we had a conversation with Dr. Lupo, who made a really good point and a little spoilery. I think we can say a few things in this episode, but this game doesn't work for solo players if they don't get that nice conclusion, right? Like they defeated the big bad. You can play this game, just get to level 20, be done, and you've completed it. You can have that sense of completion. And that's a huge thing that the first one, I guess the Black Garden is considered completing it, but it didn't feel like anything.
Can you really tell someone what the Black Garden was about?
Not really. You don't have that visceral that's the bad guy that I've been, fearing for 20 levels, and now here he is, and I'm going to fight him because he's proven himself to be a threat. But you get that feeling if you're a solo player, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, agreed.
As much as I love the Vex, it was very, I think it was too high of a concept to start off on. Like these like time traveling, like it didn't tie itself well to the Traveler and all that. Like that kind of felt like a Fallen thing. Fallen always felt like the, intro to Destiny species.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I really think, like, looking back now in hindsight, they probably should have had a Fallen raid to start it off, and that would have eased everyone in to the lore and everything. One thing that you guys were talking about, which, obviously we all probably imported our characters. I don't know if you caught this or not. If you started a new character and then import your old ones, the voice dialogue's different. Like I caught that during the preview event. Like the first time you see the Taken, they actually explain the Taken, like who the Taken are and why they're here, or like the Fallen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's actually really cool for a new person coming into Destiny, because they take into account that you're not going to have that backstory from Destiny 1. So they explain all the new enemies and the motivations for certain things. Whereas if you're a veteran player, they're like, oh yeah, the Taken. Remember when we took them out, blah, 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 So I thought that was a smart move by them as well.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Nice touch. One thing I really appreciated in this go round, and like compared to D1, it was like, all right, do all the missions against these guys on this planet until it's just like time to go to the next one. That they kind of had story at every level. So like there's the main progression of like Gaul raids the city, trying to capture the Traveler, steal the light, takes yours, kicks you off you. You're going to have to get him back at some point. And then there's the sort of next level down, which is first you need to put the team back together, get the Vanguard, get them focused again, get them working together. And then it sort of radiates out from there. Like each planet kind of has its own main story. And then there's the adventures, which start to tell some of the more side stories. There's quests, which are sort of well off the beaten path. But you get sort of this whole gradient going from the big picture, got to do it to finish the game stuff versus like, yeah, you like failsafe? Like, here, go spend a bunch more time with failsafe. You're going to say a bunch of funny things. And I thought it was really cool how they sort of had that just so smooth versus D1 where it's like the main story and then 1,000 grimoire cards that most people don't even know exist.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're probably at the point where we can officially start getting into spoilers. Let's go in order at least. So like start with the main story. We'll save the raid stuff for the second half, and we're going to talk about the raid. But if you haven't finished the game, you may want to be careful at this point. I'm impressed that you've managed to not figure out all this stuff anyways 20 days after it came out. But let's get into specifics. Parris, what did you think about the EDZ?
I loved it. I loved Devrim K, the NPC there, and like your introduction into the EDZ. I love how huge it is with the lost sectors being spread out, the adventures that you can go on. Obviously all the public events and everything that you can do. I mean, it's definitely their most ambitious world or planet or whatever you want to call it that they've done so far in Destiny. I still feel like there's some things that we've not found yet. I'm 100% convinced of it, but I love that there's so many underground structures that you can go to. I love all the Cabal structures that they have in there as well. That old, again, European cathedral setting that they have. I mean, it's a great level or world or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Yeah, there was some really good dialogue in that whole entire thing, especially when they you could tell they're like kind of getting back into it, and Zavala's showing up and you're building out the infrastructure and he's just losing his mind over like, oh, can I listen in? I love infrastructure.
Yeah.
Putting down patrol points.
Zavala being into infrastructure, I think, is the best joke of all the games so far. Failsafe, Cade, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Cade's hilarious. I think that was my favorite moment where he just got too excited and then went, oh, I'm sorry, Devrim, you should be doing this.
There's also that alternate version of the one mission where he's like, Operation Baby Dog.
Oh yeah, the strike. There's like an alternate intro.
Yeah, and it's like what? What does he talk? Yeah, and Zavala's got a soft side.
The EDZ to me is my favorite location, just because I know I've said this on Crucible Radio at some point, but my favorite thing in video games is like nice, sunny outside areas. Like put every video game in like a mountain trail or the forest and I'll be great. Every outdoor level of Halo is good. Every flood level is bad. That's just my opinion. So EDZ was like, hey, here's a big giant space that's the exact aesthetic that you love. And so I'm like, great. I do so much more patrolling there than I ever do on the other three, just because I don't know. I like being there. That says, I think, a lot about a location is if you just like hanging out and grinding there.
I think the other two, IO and Titan, are like they're what we have coming later. Like, there's not a lot to do on them.
There's a lot of spooky stuff going on in both of those.
But both have like a lot of like open-ended questions, some like teasers towards like other content that I'm sure we're going to get at some point. And I mean, it's hard for me to not like, I love Failsafe, but IO interests me so much.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I really liked about the EDZ was that for the first time you started to get the sense that's like, yeah, there are humans who exist who aren't Guardians, but they're still important to the story.
Yeah.
That aspect
they're
of
a little
D1
salty
like,
too.
There's a little bit of tension. It feels authentic. Like the idea of being in the tower for all of D1 and your only interaction with the city is just like staring down on it from miles above it was like, come on, go get in there. And to like interact with people and just like people who've been surviving out in the woods on their own. I thought that was so cool that like you get the sense of what humanity is really like more than just the Guardians dying over and over.
There's a very good quote in the early missions that Ghost kind of represents the Guardians' naivete, so to speak, where he says, like, Hawthorne's saying something. He goes, you're not allowed to do that. And she goes, when you leave the city, you don't really follow the city's rule anymore. And it kind of really goes, oh, yeah. There's a whole world going on. And it's an eye-opening one. And it makes you think, like, especially in that weakened state you're in, you're just like, wow, there's a lot more we have to worry about. We don't have this nice protective little bubble anymore.
Yeah, I took from it. I don't know if you guys ever watched Justice League Unlimited when that came out. I think it was like Cartoon Network or something like that. But in one of the seasons, they had this whole season-long storyline where basically all the non-superpowered people started to resent the Justice League because they had their whole tower in space, and they literally had a gun pointed at Earth, and the whole thing was. Who in Batman, obviously, because he's Batman, came around onto this as well, that they forgot their purpose of being the Justice League because they sat in their ivory tower in the sky and they basically were judge, jury, and executioner on everything that was happening in Earth. So when you see that you're encountering Hawthorne and you're starting to hear some of that dialogue, that really popped in my head, because here we have these Guardians with these ghosts who, like we were saying, can be reckless in a way because they know they can't die. They're always going to get resurrected. And after all these centuries, they start to lose their humility. And it was almost a good thing that Gaul comes along because he humbles them. He makes them remember the whole point of them being Guardians in the first place. And I love that it wasn't, you being, and this is something I kind of have a problem with the story, but being the quote unquote chosen one who gets the light back, you're the only one that saves the day. It's actually the non-Guardians, the Hawthorns of the world that actually have to help you by the end of the story defeat Gaul. Yeah. And I think that was very important. And then obviously in the final cut scene, Hawthorne's standing at the tower right along with you because she's just as important as you, even though she doesn't have the light. So, that's one good story element I took from that. I mean, the story, it hit its classic cliche moments. There are a few cheesy things here and there, but I think overall, I know, right? But overall, I love the message that they were giving to you, that you don't have to be this superpowered being to actually be a hero, is what I took from it.
Mm-hmm. They really play that up right at the beginning. Like you're toast without Hawthorne. I just, you don't make it. And it's literally Lewis, but an extension of Hawthorne guiding you to safety, saying, hey, keep going, come over here. And then she gives you gear and says, yeah, go get your light back. But you don't get to the shard without the help. And it really tells you, like, right away, it's like Guardians stand tall because they're on the shoulders of everyone else, which is like, it's just kind of missing from the first one because there's not an expanded world of the city and blah, blah, blah. But it's a nice starting point because it really makes you think like, oh yeah, I don't get this power just because I'm awesome. It's a real lucky position.
I wish I got more Lewis. I feel like there's not enough Lewis.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to follow him for a little bit. And that's like the last time you hear about Lewis.
You need a Lewis spy mission or something.
There's more Lewis to come, I'm sure of it. One of my, it's not, but one of my favorite pieces of lore from D1 was just the flavor text on the chaperone. It's a quote from Amanda Holliday that says, "My mother had a shotgun we called the chaperone, kept us alive out there before we got to the city." And that little bit sort of gives you the sense that, Guardians, they get charged with a lot of work. It's a tall order to fill, but it's really nothing compared to what it takes for a regular person to survive without magic armor, without triple jumps, without without resurrection ability, all of that. And that idea that there are people out there making it. And actually going back to something you had mentioned earlier, Parris, the idea of the traveler, and I think they've sort of touched on this on the lore of like what the traveler's exact motivations are. Like, as a Guardian, you kind of have to wonder, like, okay, we are the defenders of humanity. We have this power. We built the wall. We preserve the city. All that. But I don't know. I guess you just start to wonder, like, why is the Traveler doing all this? Why are we doing all of this stuff for the Traveler? Like, is it really a good thing that we're just like, we've got a bounty on our head throughout the galaxy that everyone is coming to try and get? And this idea that we get separated from that, we have to sort of start over, not with superpowers, but with regular people, is, I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I think maybe we should question the Traveler a little bit more now that we're back in it. Like, you saw what that shard of the Traveler did just out in the woods, made everything all weird. It's just a lot of raw power. Where's it all going? I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, that's the thing. That's when you look at the way the Cabal viewed the Traveler, is this is just an ultimate source of power. You know, let's channel this light and use it as a weapon. They weren't seeing this as a god or a savior or something, you know, that was going to enlighten them. This was something that was going to help them rule the universe, is the only way that they saw it. And I love that Gaul's motivation actually changes halfway through, and he realizes, I don't want to take the light. I want the light to want me. I want the Traveler to see me. So that was kind of important at the very end when you defeat Gaul and he comes back as just like this ultimate force of light. The Traveler actually acknowledges his existence and does what it does. In other words, the Traveler could have got out of that anytime it wanted to, but it chose that moment that, yeah, okay, Gaul, I see you. Now you got to go. Now you got to go away. You know what I mean? To let you know that, yeah, I am this all powerful thing, and it displayed its power when it was needed the most.
There's a little bit on IO with Asher where you're trying to create light. And I found that really interesting because it was like, it was working in some aspect, but then at the end they're like, oh, it failed. Like, we weren't able to create it. And you're like, the whole time you're sitting there just like constantly charging your super because it's spewing orbs of light. And I don't know. It was like a lot of stuff that happened on that planet was like very interesting, and there's a lot of loose ends there.
So Parris, following Gaul's sort of change of heart, what did you think about the speaker's involvement in this story and his sort of, just sort of being there for all of those monologues?
It's funny. If before, we actually got to play the game and go through the story, I would have taken 10-1 odds that the speaker was evil and was in on it the whole time. I was convinced. I'm like, this guy's so full of it. He can't talk to the Traveler. It's like, this is a complete setup. I was convinced.
He was a hack in the end, though.
He was a hack, though. So I was actually glad that they acknowledged that. But it was interesting. Well, he was part of the reason that Gaul reconsidered his motivations, because he made him realize that the light isn't something you can take by force. The light has to choose you. And then Gaul realizes that through the speaker. And then, like we said, that's his motivation. I guess it's the counselor was the one that was like, no, console. Thank you. And he's saying, no, this is a weapon. Let's stick to the original plan. And then obviously, Gaul winds up killing him. And I have to say, didn't realize the speaker was dead at the end. I was a little confused on that. I thought he just fell. I didn't realize he was dead.
Is he dead?
Yeah,
I think I'm still confused.
Yeah, he's supposed to be dead. That's supposed. Look, the videos on YouTube say he's dead, so they're got to be right?
I don't believe everything I hear on YouTube.
But I think that's the door for Osiris to come in and be the man.
Right.
Although, like, they like, do we need a speaker? That's kind of like he was a hack. Like, what is the speaker's point at this point? Well, like, I don't know.
Have a new point,
no one else knows that the speaker was a hack, so maybe they'll look for Osiris to fill in.
Well, it is curious because we as the player, that's an interesting premise, because we as the player of a person playing Destiny know about the speaker, what happened, what he said. No one else does.
That aspect of the storytelling, I found a little like what the perspective you have as the main player is. Because like, and I actually, Parris, I think you touched on this in your roundtable, that you kind of don't really hear back. Like, you see Gaul at the beginning, he kicks you off the thing, and then it's just like, I guess I wonder what he's up to right now. I gotta go collect something or other on this planet.
I hope he hasn't moved for the past few weeks while I get my power back.
Right. Yeah, and again, that's where the storytelling gets a little shaky. Like, I almost feel like midway through the game, you should have had another encounter with Gaul. And obviously that never happens. But before I forget it, I have to bring this up. Did you catch, and I can't remember the name of the adventure, but one of the adventures on Nessus with Failsafe, Failsafe gets captured by the Vex. Did you catch that you rescue her, and she said that she'd been talking to someone for a decade, and the ghost is like, wait, what are you talking about? You weren't gone for a decade. I think she was with Osiris for a decade, for 10 years. And I think that comes out during the DLC that, she was gone the entire time.
That was a really trippy one, because like at some point you're like, the Vex start to seem like good guys for a second.
Right.
Because he's like talking about the Vex. And like, I think that may come out in some fashion with Osiris, because he's been studying them for so long. And for Failsafe to have gotten captured by the Vex and then spent 10 years talking to Osiris about it, who knows? There's a lot there.
Well, that's what I mean.
There's completely did not catch that.
Yeah.
Spooky. Mind blown right now.
Well, that's the thing. That's the potential that the story has moving forward with some of the expansions. And, we already know that Osiris is that next expansion. So I said this directly to Bungie when I was there. I was like, for the love of Jesus, get Failsafe off Nessus, please. So that could be their opportunity right there where she got captured.
Wow. So Parris, what would be your most anticipated storyline coming out of this game?
Oh man, that's a good one. It's kind of what we were just talking about. I want to know more about Osiris. I think that's the next logical thing to come out of this, because everything else with the Cabal, and obviously where the raid went, and the final cutscene that we saw after the credits leads to something way down the road. Yeah, I would think in the near term, it's got to be Osiris. Who is Osiris? Is he a good person? Is he a bad person? Is he going to replace the Speaker? What's his relationship to the Vex? Are we going to find out more information about the Vex? I think that's definitely the next thing I want to know.
So I have one that I think, I don't know how many people went back there and did the mission for it, but on IO, there's a mission where you get the linear fusion rifle Manowar from Asher. It's just literal. A lot of people probably dismiss this because it was just like busy work after the game was done. But it's on IO, and you are, going out there and like looking around because the Taken are up to something. And you're talking to Ikora and you're talking to Asher the entire time. And you're just trying to figure out what they're doing to the Vex. And they're actually capturing the Vex and taking them. And you see it happen like multiple times throughout that like few missions. And it was really weird because like the conversations you start having start elaborating on the fact that like the Taken don't know what they're doing. And they may be fucking up by doing this, because taking the Vex is way more complicated than taking like a Guardian or like taking something like a Fallen. Like Fallen are easy.
Soldier.
Yeah, just like some soldier. But the Vex like time travel and they mess with everything. And I distinctly remember I may mess this up, and we're gonna have lore people chastise me for this, but at some point the Vex tried to recreate Oryx in the like his throne world, and they messed up, and like it all fell apart and nothing happened of it. But I think on IO they're leading towards some sort of interaction between the Taken and the Vex, and it probably will not go well for the Taken.
Right.
Like they'll take the Vex, and something will get messed up, and we'll all of a sudden be in like a parallel universe or something. But Asher kind of like hints at something that may come down the line at the Pyramidion, which is like that giant thing on Nessus that's like, it looks like a pyramid. You climb it to catch all those like those gold chests when you're running around It's real fun. But you go into it and you like end up killing this. I think he was like I don't know what. He was like just giant Vex, and that was taken. And you don't really think much of it. You go back to Asher, you get your gun, and he's like, "Oh, you didn't even go that far. Like you didn't even reach the lake." And you're like, "What the hell's the lake?" And I don't know. It's got a lot to it, and I want to know what the lake is. And I think Pyramidion is a really cool name for a raid.
The lake is. He mentions that in the strike, does he not? Because you're saying like he's like you're supposed to be there, and it's just the hole in the ground.
Yeah,
that's the same lake. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some spooky stuff going on in IO. I think the Vex to me sound like I've always sort of thought, even back in D1, that like that's the true end game. That's the final story of Destiny, and it's great to have all of these maybe standalone events with Gaul, or to say that the Fallen are the sort of the introductory, like the most similar to Guardians kind of enemy class. But I think the Vex are the final gambit that we have to face, because they kind of just seem the scariest.
Yep. I figure if you could do time travel, like you've probably already won, or like we're just repeating this again, and you're just like saying
the thing from the Vault of Glass. When you come out of the time travel, it says Guardians make their own fate. It pisses off the Vex because they can't control you.
Yes, the one thing that can't be modeled, or whatever it was from that.
Right.
Excuse me. Spooky.
They had I think the one that stood out for me that I don't know, it doesn't really set up anything in the next one except for the fact that the Vex are cool. That storyline on Nessus, I think it's Lost Crew, where Failsafe is wondering whatever happened to.
Is that where you get Drang? Or is it
Stern? Might be. It might be. I just remember like you're following this one harpy.
Yep.
And I know what you're talking about.
Oh man,
that was the captain, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it was just like I got to the end, and like that moment was like what I love, sort of the progression of the storytelling, where it's just like you never stop moving. The storytelling and the action is interspersed, and then to the end you just got like. So that's what happens if you crash land on a Vex planet and you're not a Guardian. And like, I got a little choked up, man. It was sad, weird. I like
that. Was one of the weirdest, most interesting things Bungie
me
has
and
ever
Bones
done.
Did that mission together, and we like casually did it because we were just like, oh yeah, we're gonna do some missions.
Yeah, you got to grind these missions out, right?
You want to do this mission on Nessus? Get this thing. I think it gets you a gun, and then we were like. What in the world is going on here?
Yeah, and eventually we just sort of stopped talking. We just sort of slowly went through it, and we were just like my mouth hung open throughout the whole mission because I was like, this is totally wild. And it was so like, and it was especially right after we did the story, which was very much, this is an action movie. I understand how this plot works. We need to defeat the big bad guy, get the team back together. And then we were like, great. High on that energy. Let's go do some missions. What's up here? And then it's just like, no, was not ready for this. Not emotionally prepared for this weirdness. Same thing happened on the strike too on Titan, the Savathun song. I was just like, they are going above and beyond. They are getting as weird as possible.
I do think we are going to have a lore person, like a legit lore person, come on and school us at some point. Yeah. Like, hey, what did we mess up?
What are these? How do I say
what did
this?
we miss? What's the cool thing we missed? Because I'm sure I missed a ton.
I just love that, like, because the main Destiny story is, it's understandable. It's easy to follow. There are cheesy moments. It sort of hits all the notes. I like the weird sci-fi stuff that you couldn't really otherwise tell in a big AAA game. That they've brought into the game this time. You don't have to do it, but yeah, that lore goes somewhere. You can just keep on digging.
Parris, are there any characters that you miss? And I feel like the answer you're allowed to say no, but are there any characters from D1 that weren't here that you miss?
I want to say no, but I guess I would say maybe the Stranger. I feel like that needs to be answered. This obviously wasn't the story to answer that question because I feel like she was made from darkness. So they'll obviously get to the darkness at some point down the road. but that's probably one character I would love to hear more about. I would say an enemy that I was hoping to see more of in Destiny 2 would have been the Siva Fallen. I wanted to see a little more of them because obviously we got a taste of those in Rise of Iron. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I've missed it and just not played it yet, but isn't there supposed to be a strike with Siva? Am I crazy?
I remember hearing the same thing and wondering, and I think there's certainly hints about it on Nessus with a possible reason that Exodus Black actually crashed in the first place. But the Siva references have been pretty light so far. I remember thinking that would kind of come into play a lot more than it did.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably hope that, well, I'd hope that they're going to save Siva because it is like, it's a complicated explanation. I feel like it's not a good like introduction into the Destiny world. It's like, hey, there's this thing that like makes you better. And we were researching it at first and it made everyone cool. And then like all of a sudden it turned on us. And now, yeah. I don't know. Feels a little complicated to me, but
yeah.
Now I'll say one character I missed until he actually showed up was Master Raul, however you say his name, because I'm thinking, oh man, they killed off the Cryptarch. He isn't here. Oh, that's too bad. And then obviously we're in the spoilers when you get the tower back and he's there. I was like, oh great, he's back. Turn in my first engram, duplicate. I was like, I hate you all over again. I'm done.
If I get one more disrespectful stare from him, it's like, what are you trying to tell me, Rahul?
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't want any more.
I got a little emotional when I made it to the tower because I did blindsided, had no idea we'd be on some new tower, completely out of the blue. So I remember just sort of being there, just sort of slowly walking around. I think the first place I looked was the postmaster because it's right there on your left. And I was like, oh, look, it's the postmaster. This is great. Oh, okay. Tess moved over here. She's in her new shop. That's interesting. Oh, it's the Cryptarch. He's alive. And I was like actually happy to see him. I'm like, wait, no, I don't care.
And Banshee was there too.
Banshee is one of my favorite characters for just a vendor. I love his character and I was very happy to see him too. It was really cool to see some people alive.
One thing I enjoyed about, and they did this with all of the characters, right? Like they introduced them in D1, but they've sort of differentiated in their different personalities in D2. And I think I probably my two favorite to come back in D2 are Shax and Banshee, because they've both gotten a little bit weird. Like Shax has been yelling at you for so long that he's just, some of the stuff he yells is like nonsensical or weirdly personal. And you're like, oh, all right, thanks, Crucible Dad. But with Banshee, like all of a sudden in this game, you get the sense of like, oh, you're probably like 1,000 years old. Like you're not just the guy who builds guns, who's seen some shit. You have been around since the beginning. You've done this so many times over that history is starting to blur together. Things are starting to repeat themselves. You've seen so many bad guys come and go. I like that. And I don't have anything particular to point to. It's just like little bits of flavor that you hear when you walk by him, and he's just, like the old guy reminiscing while he plays with guns.
Here's what's special about that, Birds. I think what stands out to me with Banshee, there's a few different lines they always say when you talk to him. You go to the tower, turn in some tokens. One of Banshee's is, he goes, who won? And he asks you who won. It might even be a mission or something like that. Obviously, the answer is you. You're standing there in front of him. But I feel like, to me, Banshee's the only one who sort of knows what the heck a Guardian does when they're not at the tower, which is slaughter countless aliens, right? Like constantly go out there. Yeah, maybe not risk your life because you'll come back to life, but to really go out there and like do war and stuff like that. And Banshee's the guy that like, yeah, no, I get it. You're not just out there like being a real good guy. You're out there fighting, and I think that's really cool.
Should we talk about the raid?
Well, we should maybe mention the raid.
Okay. So did you guys like the raid?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Paris, what'd you think?
I thought it, excuse me, Bungie Ninjas don't want me to say this, but I thought it was okay. It is probably my least favorite of all the raids.
Oh,
not that it's bad. I mean, there's some fun moments in it. Don't get me wrong, but if I had to rank them, this would definitely be at the bottom of the list for me.
Give me your BuzzFeed listicle of
best raids,
Bungie raids.
For me, the best is probably King's Fall, because it had such an epic feel to it. You were encountering all these bosses along the way, and there was meaning to each boss when you ran into them. Vault of Glass is obviously the OG right after that, because that's what started it all. If Vault of Glass wasn't what it was back in 2014, we're probably not here right now talking about Destiny. So I'll have a fond place in my heart. And then Crota, while it was short and, it has its bugs and glitches, it was just fun. It was just a fun raid to do. And then Wrath of the Machine, something about Axis at the end with that music gets me fired up every time when I do it. It is just such an amazing track that they have when you fight Axis at the end. And then this one, while technically there's only one boss with Callus, and I get this is more of the Emperor inviting you to his games. I call it Running Man 2017, especially the gauntlet part. I mean, there's fun parts to it. Don't get me wrong. And I'm pretty sure there's still some secrets in the underbelly that we've simply not found yet. And, we've yet to do challenge mode or prestige mode. But for what this raid is, and I think what it truly is the loot system is what gets me more than anything. I don't feel that incentive to go back and play it. Like King's Fall, I would just play it for fun. Didn't matter. I just love to go run that raid back. Whereas this one, I don't have that pull to just go play it for fun. And I'm not seeing the loot incentive to go run it back and just play it either. And maybe that'll change with challenge mode and prestige. I don't know, but that's just how I feel today.
I will say I will run this raid every single week, just the beginning, so I can get the shader.
Yeah.
Gotta stock up on that shader.
It's so beautiful.
I try not to complain too much about RNG, despite the fact that I do it constantly.
And your drops are terrible.
Yeah, well, my drops are objectively terrible, but that's beside the point. But no, I completely agree with the loot system on this. I thought the inclusion of okay, you have tokens, there's a new vendor that's unlocked. Okay, cool. And the fact that you get your clan engram, so even people who don't play it have got some access to it, although it's not going to be a power grind helper for them. I thought that was cool, but we got we did it blind on the first day. We got to Callus. We didn't take him down, but getting to Callus in that final point and looking back, and it was all right, I got 4 of the shader. I got some keys. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with those. And I got...
The keys feel like a chore.
It feels like a chore.
A lot of times you just go back to the raid to do the keys.
Yeah, on another night.
Yeah, we're going to skip the keys. We're going to go back into the main room. We're going to do the next fight. Keys later in the week, everybody.
Yep. But just that I gotten that far, and all I got was the rocket launcher. And it was it felt like a lot of the people in the party too, for better or worse, we've sort of been conditioned to get some kind of cool drop after each phase. And to just not have that apply to 75% of them, that kind of hurt. I needed, we were in there for a long time. I just needed a little gear infusion to keep me going.
Slightly off topic, but I feel like what stands out the most to me is the disparity between Trials gear and Raid gear. Those are the iconic end game activities, and I have all Trials weapons immediately and 2 things from the Raid after running it 4 times. So I definitely feel I have that feeling where it's
Raid
what
armor for my Titan.
All right, well, whatever, dude.
Hey,
I got the hat. The hat's something.
I got the pants. I got lots of pants. But yeah, I'm not gonna put this on top of my favorite raid of all time. I got this big, huge sense of wow from many of the raids, especially Vault and Wrath. The feeling I remember beating the Zamboni and then doing that big drop and just looking to the left and right. We were outside for the first time and we had a second to look around. And then you dive down into this server room. The visuals were just stunning. And there was a little bit of that with these, because I certainly wasn't expecting a weird castle. The visuals of this raid are absolutely stunning in a sense that they're just bonkers. I keep calling this raid bonkers. It's just so not what I expected. So I really appreciate it for that. But the thing I love the most about this raid is the way it fits into the story. It's both an extension. It goes off into some real weird Destiny territory that isn't as marketable, isn't that like easy action filmy sort of thing. But it does tie in real hard with Gaul, and you learn a lot about Gaul. And I think Callus has some serious implications should they choose to, maybe let us meet him in person someday. So, if they do that, it will be wild.
So we were talking about it in the Swain Orbit Discord, and someone that hadn't finished the raid was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they're just going to have you beat the big baddie again, and you just move along." And I'm like, "No, dude, finish the raid before you talk about it." Like, that's not what happens. Like, I can tell you outright, because it's so interesting to have this like thing where you're like, oh, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go beat the big baddie. And then you're like, oh, wait, no, he was a robot. Oh, and he was just messing with us. Like, oh, okay. This was just a giant game show.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cool because it was like, it's not another like go in, smash him up, leave, and nothing happens. It's like, oh, now we have like a friend? Is he a friend?
Right.
He's something. Yeah. Before we dive into Callus lore specifically, because I definitely want to a little bit, Parris, I'm curious what do you think about the three mechanics? Because I think they do stand out a lot from other raids, but I can't quite put my finger on why.
At first I was a little put off by it, but I've played through it a few times now, and I kind of dig it. I dig it now that you can change up the way the encounters work, because you kind of just have that overworld, so to speak, and then you fight your way and you open the door to be able to go into the particular encounter. The encounters are great because I love that, and that's the other great thing about Destiny is it forces you to communicate. And I really do like that this one just didn't stick to the standard formula of, all right, shoot the thing that we say we're looking at. Whereas it's actually the opposite. A lot of these encounters are do the one thing that we don't say, and that was an interesting take on it. So I actually really enjoyed that. I would say of all the encounters, probably my favorite one would be the Gauntlet. Even though there isn't a quote unquote boss that you fight, because it's literally Running Man. It's like a game show that you have to do. Mm-hmm. And I like the way that we have to communicate and work together to get through that encounter. I know you didn't ask me this one. I would say, though, my most frustrating one would probably be Callus, actually, because I feel like
it's tricky. You
need all six people. You can't make a mistake. One person makes a mistake. Yeah. It is a flipping wipe, especially in the shadow world. So I'm going to be very curious to see how that's going to work in prestige mode.
We had a few comms moments last night, actually, running the raid. Had a couple slip ups on Callus. We weren't too worried. People learning the new loot. They had done Shadow Realm or Inside first. But we had a moment where someone was like, I don't care about how ammo you have, just like, let's just make our call outs, like who cares how much ammo we all have? Let's just keep the comms clean, because it definitely requires very specific, careful, timed call outs, which I do enjoy. But man, when you mess it up and you're just waiting for that one and you're just like, all right, time to wipe. Just waiting for that one word to come out. It's pretty specific.
But on the first day when we went in and did the whole thing blind, and we were 12 hours into it. We finally get to Callus, and there was just a moment in me after, like, I went into the Shadow Realm, and I was one of the people in there, and I just kept getting flung off of the little wind air. I don't know what to call it, but kept getting flung. And I'm like, there was this defeat washed over me, and I'm like, we're not doing this tonight. I'm going to bed. Bye. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go do my tower maintenance on these 1,000 legendary engrams I have. Then I'm gonna go sleep.
Yeah, that aspect of it. I have a friend who's just starting with Destiny now. He's fairly new to console first person shooters. He didn't play D1 at all. He's just getting into it, and he's asking me about the raid, and I don't know how to describe it, because it's like, yeah, it's It is the most intensely complicated thing. They don't tell you how to do anything. All the strategies people have, they figured out. But like, you can't die. Like, you can, but only once. You can't do it. And that, I think, makes it a little more inaccessible in a way that maybe Crota wasn't, right? Like, you could take a new person along on Crota and be like, all right, follow my lead, wait for the moment. But for this, it's like they just put you in the driver's seat of the fire truck.
Yeah.
It's like, you better get to the fire before the building burns down.
I feel like I forget who it was on Twitter. I'm sorry if I can't tell who it was, but someone said that like the difference between regular story Destiny and the raid is ridiculous. Because regular story is like, oh yeah, you died. We'll res you in a couple like 10 seconds. It's fine. No big deal. You can die a few times. And it'll just start you over. There's easy checkpoints throughout the story. And then the raid is so punishing. Like, you tripped over this rock. All right, wipe. It's another 10 minutes added to this encounter.
Yeah, and
it's intense.
And I guess that would be the one frustrating thing. But hey, it's Destiny. It's a raid, which the raid has been known to test the limits of friendships around the world every time one comes out. But that would probably be the one frustrating thing. Is I felt like, with our team, we know the strat. We know what we're doing. Everyone knows their role. We're communicating correctly. You tripped slightly on that pebble, and now you just flung through the Shadow Realm. Wipe, start all over again. And that would be the one thing about this that I didn't like. Like, it left zero room for a hero moment. Whereas in the other raids, I always felt like there was always a chance for a hero moment. Like, take Axis, for example. You could have someone go down and you could be the one with the shot cannon. You throw it down and then you pick it up and you make that clutch throw of the bomb at the last second to save the whole thing. Right. This one, no freaking way. It's either you do it or you don't. There's no way to save it once someone makes a mistake.
Yep. I noticed in the, was it Pleasure Gardens, the doggo one, where we're all standing on top of the safety chamber, and they just like put that gutter right there that's just like jump in here to die gutter. Yeah. And I remember thinking at the time, like, yeah, they kind of expected us to wipe a lot. Like, this is actually a nice thing that they're doing. That's like, yeah, you can skip the 30-second counter if you need to, because you're gonna need to a lot. Over and over. It was maybe a little more on the nose than it had been in previous raids.
Yeah, I will take the new revive mechanic outside of the Shadow Realm. Shadow Realm, it's just instant punish. It's very tough, but I have to say I do like the get the res fast sort of feeling. You get that red on your screen. You got to know you have 30 seconds to go pick them up. I like that a lot more than someone just sitting there dead while we finish out a few segments and stuff. So I think that's an overall plus, but yeah, man, on Shadow Realm, it's like, sorry.
Yep. You lose. Oh, but let me say this to be clear, because I'm sure there will be people that listen to this and they'll be like, you hate the raid, I hate you. But it may be my least favorite, but I also look at it from this perspective. Back in 2014 with Vault of Glass, none of us, unless you were a big World of Warcraft player, had any idea what we were getting into with the raid, right? So there was like this new thing. We didn't understand how the mechanics would work, communication, none of that. And then they iterated on that with Crota and obviously into King's Fall. And then ultimately by the time we got to Wrath of the Machine. And if you look at once we got to Wrath of the Machine, people were blowing through that because
good at it.
We knew the formula. We kind of, all right, this is the Destiny raid format. We kind of, all right, figure out the puzzle. Once we got it figured out, all right, communicate, boom, we're done. So in that respect, I'm glad that they changed it up this time and they gave us something different to make us think, because what was World's First? Wasn't that one like 7 hours? I think.
Yeah, it was up there.
Yeah, that was probably the longest one since Vault of Glass, I would imagine. And and that's a good thing, because
I love the cockiness of everyone going into it. Like, we're over leveled.
Yeah.
How are we gonna we're gonna breeze through this? And like all the Bungie devs showing up like, okay, sure. Yeah, you're gonna breeze through it. Wink, wink, okay.
And
that was my favorite part.
And you got to think that's the challenge for them moving forward with Destiny 2 and eventually into Destiny 3, since they got the quote unquote 10-year game plan for this, is every year you got to think once a year we're going to get a raid now, right? So what's the next challenge next year? And then the year after that, and the year after that, you constantly have to iterate on it and change it up, because this community, as we've already seen, there's a lot of smart people in here, and there's people that are really good at the game. They're just going to keep figuring it out each time. So how do you keep pushing that time barrier out so that people aren't completing this on day one in an hour or two?
Yeah.
You know, that's the big challenge that they have. So I may complain now and say, oh, this is my least favorite raid and I didn't like this and I didn't like that. But I do appreciate that they're at least trying something different and not just doing the same thing over and over.
Absolutely.
I'm going to agree with you. I think my favorite section was the gauntlet as well, because sort of to what we've been saying, like, I think that is sort of the pinnacle of this thing, which, like, yeah, there's ads, you know, you'll be fine. You'll be able to take care of them. The hard part about it has nothing to do with DPS. It has nothing to do with a timer, really. It's just pure coordination. Like, how quickly can you move? How accurately can you jump? Things that affect you at any power level. I also thought it kind of showed off, like, the story of it, which is, like, it's not a linear progression of, you know, kill this guy so you can get to this guy so you can get to this guy. It's a game show. It's Running Man. And that it definitely was unusual. It definitely started to get old after we, like, made it to that final round for the 7th time or whatever. But it just ties in so nicely to, like, Callus's whole deal, because he's not there to destroy Earth. He's not there to ruin you. He's there to test you. Everyone's testing us these days. The 9 are testing us. Osiris was testing us. Now this guy's testing us, or is, like, bored and wants to watch us struggle. But it did feel cohesive in a way that just, like, okay, the boss's shield is down. Melt him, you know.
He's just there to show up, eat Nessus, turn it into wine, chill.
Sure.
In his throne room.
Like you do.
Nessus and chill.
What did you guys, and this is something where I there's a lot more lore I need to get into. What did you guys think about Callus as a boss? As a bad guy, quote unquote?
I am fascinated with him. He's so interesting. Go ahead, Parris.
Oh, no, I can say this. After that first night where we were on the struggle bus trying to get past it, that clap was literally all up in my feelings and in my dreams the next day. That's all I could see. So it's like anytime I hear that clap now, I kind of shudder. I'm like, oh, yeah, Callus. But yeah. No, I think he was fine as a boss. Like I said, I thought some of the mechanics were a little unforgiving, you know, where it was either you get it perfect or you're going to wipe. But I appreciate splitting the team up, forcing everyone to have to communicate, because it's like literally once you go to that shadow realm, comms got to be clear, man, immediately. No talking about your girlfriend's in the other room listening to Tupac. It's like you got to be quiet so we can hear. Look, sun, cup, sword is just ingrained into my head, because it's like I'm constantly saying, yeah. So, right. So I love that part of it, because, again, I think that's the great part of Destiny is it forces us to communicate. And a lot of games struggle with that. And the fact that they're able to get that right and make 6 people have to work together is such an amazing thing.
I did like how they actually included into the story an explanation for how it is we're able to keep killing this guy week after week after week. It's not just like, oh yeah, we're caught in a Vex time loop where, like, I guess Crota comes back and we got to go get him again because of reset. I thought that was, I mean, it's not a game changer, but anytime you can sort of reconcile some of the realities of making a video game like this, I appreciate that. I guess I was just throwing a little bit for a loop, though, because I thought, like, Gaul was the boss of the Cabal, but he's not. He's just, like, a really good general who's, like, way into getting the light. And Callus was like, all right, you seem into this. I like you. Sure, here's an army. Take the Red Legion, go do your thing. And his motivations are like, I want this. I'm going to get you. I deserve it. I'm strong. You're weak. Let's go. And Callus is just like, he kind of showed up. He's not, like, pushing the line at all. He just seems sort of bored and looking for more entertainment. I don't have him figured out yet.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on Callus. I think there's a lot to Callus. it does come off of that whole nice little explain video game thing. Like, why do we keep doing this? The World Eater is still floating over Nessus on our map. Like, the thing, it doesn't go away. It doesn't even seem like we stopped it. If you look at the size of the city up there, doesn't seem like that's the whole thing. It really shows off this immensity that challenges the other immense things we're aware of. And there's immense things in Destiny, which fascinates me. The Traveler is an immense thing, both in power and in concept. The Warmind in concept and in depth and size is insanely huge and complex. And then you've got something like the World Eater, which is just like, what? What? There's a thing that eats planets, and Callus is saying, you know, maybe he's bored, but he's also more knowledgeable than us. Callus knows about stuff that we have no idea exists. And he's saying, come here, I'm going to test you. I'm going to give you rewards. I'm going to give you gear and loot that will maybe equip you from what's coming, but you're not ready. And he says as much right when you beat him, that there are stuff we just aren't aware of. And that freaks me out. I think that's so insane. He specifically mentions these powers and stuff. And for a guy that, you know, rules an entire race, as far as I can tell, doesn't seem worried himself. But I think there's even more so that, like, he wants to prove himself to us. Birds, you kind of said it, right? Like, I'm strong, you're weak. And that's very much what Gaul does, is like, I'm going to kick your ass because I'm stronger than you. And I like telling you that I'm strong. That's not Callus's MO. He doesn't care. Well, he's almost saying, like, who else in this universe could possibly have a conversation with me about all of this stuff that I know about? Are the Guardians good enough to do that? Can they handle it? They seem to have handled Gaul. Maybe they can. The Traveler seems like a nice little ally for them. Maybe they can, but he seems to just know about some serious stuff, and that really intrigues me.
The thing with Callus is that the Leviathan is a prison. Like, he's not there on his own accord. Mm-hmm. He was put there as part of the coup that the consul and Gaul put together and basically kicked him out. We're like, they didn't kill him. They could have killed him, but they kicked him out and said, you're banned. You're going to spend the rest of your life on this Leviathan floating through space. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and even that, it doesn't seem like he's worried.
They did, yeah. That's why the hand cannon's called Midnight Coup.
Dang, okay.
But he's like not even concerned. It's not even like he wants revenge. He's like, yeah. You think you guys are powerful. Good job, Gaul. Great job. I probably made you feel like you're better than you were. You wanted all the power in the universe. Great job. Whatever. You know, I will do this, but I know that there's more. I just think like he's hinting at stuff that's so much larger, and I hope they play with it. I hope they do it. Maybe it's the new triangle enemies we haven't heard about. Maybe he knows about them. Maybe it's something entirely different, but I think there's a lot of potential there, and I hope they use it. Anyways, it's so, there's so much to it. This is what happens with Grimoire. It's so insane.
All right. Well, overall, looking back and knowing that even before the next DLC, there's still a lot more to find. Parris, final take. Destiny 2, do you like it?
Yes. I mean, I love Destiny 2. I think this was closer to that original vision that we got back in 2013. I feel like Destiny 2 has been a great quality of life upgrade from what we had with vanilla Destiny. I think obviously there were some great features that we got over the past 3 years that have yet to make an appearance here in Destiny 2, but the game's not even been out a month yet. As of we're recording this right now, faction rallies are about to make their appearance. Iron Banner is going to come. We're still going to get a prestige raid.
Yeah.
You know, we obviously have that Osiris expansion or DLC that's going to come in December. There's still a lot that will happen with Destiny 2. And the one thing that I try to tell anyone when they ask me about Destiny is you have to remember this. The game we're playing today will not be the game we're playing a year from now. It will evolve. It will change. And I think that's one of the other great things about Destiny that keeps me coming back is whether we like the speed that Bungie may or may not do it with, they do listen to us. and they do make changes for better or for worse. It's not always perfect, but we'll see this game evolve, and our feedback is very important to that. And we get to help shape what this game will look like in the future. And that always excites me. And, like I say, ultimately it's about the people, people like yourselves who I stink at PvP. So I listen to you guys trying to pick up some tips. Like I'm not even kidding. When you had True Vanguard on a couple of weeks ago, I literally picked up a notepad. I'm like, ooh, I need to get that gun, and I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna try that. You know what I mean? So it's like it's so awesome that there's so many great people in this community that you can listen to, you can learn from, you watch them stream on Twitch, and it's awesome, man. Because like at the reveal event, I guess some of you guys were there and I missed you. We didn't get to meet face to face, but it was like this crazy high school reunion of all these people that I would listen to or watch on Twitch. And we finally got to meet and play the game that we all love together. And that was such a cool thing,
The fastest 6 hours of my life.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, we just didn't want to leave.
But yeah, that's my Destiny 2 thoughts.
Well, they were very well said. Parris, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're fans. It's awesome to be able to connect with another podcaster and to stop talking about the Crucible just for once. I'm so sick of it. Not really, but for one episode, it's a nice break. But we really appreciate you coming on the show. Hey, where can people find you on the internet if they want to hear more of your thoughts on Destiny or other video games in the world?
Okay, well, if you just want to see the ramblings of an angry old man, you can follow me on Twitter at Vicious696.
That is the most perfect description of Twitter as a whole
I know, right?
I've ever heard.
But yeah, my Twitter is at Vicious696. You can also follow Gamertag Radio. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/Gamertag Radio, or you can find the actual podcast. Gamertagradio.com is our website.
There it is. Go check it out and go listen to that D2 roundtable. That was a great talk, and I wish I could go back to the time before D2 is out so I could enjoy blind all of the material that was happening that I missed. But yeah, great chat.
Oh,
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, folks, this is it. This is the end of the bonus PvE episode, PvEpisode. Maybe we'll do some more of these. Just stay tuned. They'll be in your feed in between regular episodes of Crucible Radio. That's all we have for now.
Check us out, crucibleradio.com. Until next week.
Bye.
Hello everyone, Swain here. You know that Crucible Radio is your source for all things Destiny PvP, and I know you want more than just this video, so make sure to head on over to crucibleradio.com to find all of our past episodes, detailed Crucible maps, t-shirts, and much, much more.